Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff and part 3 in our ICM Model T Speedster build. So we are progressing quite nicely with this now. When you put this on, you can just about see possibly that this is leaning backwards slightly. It's not at 90 degrees and that's causing problems with building up the bonnet. So what I've found is it's easier to build the bonnet up around the bulkhead here, and then you can click. There's a little tab at the front here which clicks into a little hole in there, so you sort of go in like that, push the radiator forward, and then you can line it all up, because trying to put those two bonnet pieces in as the instructions indicate, and I shall show you here what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to put this little hinge into the bulkhead and plop that in. So you've then got the option of those being open if you cut the hinges and mess around with it and stuff, which I'm not doing, as you know. But yeah, getting it all to align is a bit problematic. However, we are getting there. It just takes a little bit of time and working through slowly. The fit's not great in places, to be honest, but once you've got it where it needs to be, looks all right. So I'm happy with how the wheels have come out. I've got a little bit of touch up to do on the axles, more of the axles showing through the wheel than I expected, so I've just got a little bit of touch up to do on there. Got a little bit of touch up to do on the bodywork, tiny amount there. Bonnet just needs, we need to prime the two bonnet parts, and then they can be painted, and then that's ready to go in. We have mounted the fuel tank and the boot box, if you like, on the back. Got a little bit of painting to do on the rear, which we'll do in this blue. I put the tyres on, and my intention actually was to paint the tyres because I thought they were a bit too white, but actually I quite like them on. They look quite bright. So what we'll probably do is we'll put some pastels on it, just to make them look like it's been used, and that might just dumb it down a little bit anyway. So I'm sort of thinking I might keep these as they are for now. Not 100% on that, not 100%. I do think they're a bit white. They should be more of a sort of a white grey for this period of time. Everything's done underneath. The exhaust is in place. It's not overly complicated, in fairness. Axle structure is not complex, so yeah, and I think my colours are working, so I'm quite happy with that. Bucket seats, we've done base colour for those, and we need to prime the backs and paint them in the blue colour, and then we are in the process now of painting black everything that needs to be brass, and then what we're doing is we're putting a base down of AK Extreme Brass, and then we're going to go over it with a brighter brass colour. It just means that the paint I'm using is an oil paint, and what you do is you brush it on and then you polish it off, and I don't want it to polish down to the black, so we put a brass underneath it. I've found seems to work. So there's not many parts left. We've got put the bonnet on, the various lamps, which will be a little time consuming, and pedals, and handbrake and the like, and the car is then nearly there. The most intricate bit left is steering column, which again I need to do some brass elements on it, put the steering wheel on, and then it has that little shaving mirror thing that goes on the front there. So that's it for the car, which we will get completed in this video, and then I'm working on the figures. So there's two figures. We have a lady driving and a bloke sat next to her with his sort of armour around her. The fit of the figures is well, pretty rubbish in places. There's been a lot of gap filling I'm still doing gap filling. There's probably been about 3, maybe 4 hours spent on cleaning up the parts. There is a lot of parts to the figures, actually. If I just show you. You can't see all of them because it's built up, but you know, the lady's hat is 4 parts. The bottom of the dress, so the dress was 1, 2, 3, 4 parts plus shoes or legs which have gone in. The gentleman has less parts. They look really good, actually. So underpaint, they look great. I haven't fully decided on colours. So that's the body done. There was a huge 1.5mm gap that ran from there to there, which we've successfully got rid of. So I'm happy with that. What I generally do with figures is I prime the arms separately before I glue them on. It just allows me to check that we've got the seams all cleaned up, because it's much easier to handle and clean up the arms when they're not glued in place. So what we'll do is we'll prime them, and then once the car's finished, we can position the figure and glue the arm in place, making sure we've got it correctly aligned to whatever it's touching, which in this case will be the steering wheel. So until the seat and the steering wheel's on, at least, we can't do anything with the figure. But as I've got a little bit of priming left to do on the car, I want to prime this at the figures at the same time. Save me a little bit of time, which is why we're cleaning these up before we progress the car any further. Right then, seats. I have finally come to a decision on the colour. So we've painted the backs, which is the car body colour, which, if you remember, is Humbrol's Gloss 14. And we are going to do the seat covers in Humbrol Gloss 20, which is like this sort of burgundy colour. And I originally bought this paint specifically to do the car seats for my Aurora Chitty Chitty Bang Bang build, which you can see if you Google it and find the build on Model Space, you'll see my build there of that. So yeah, and I've never used the paint since, so it'll be good to use it, and I think it'll look nice against the blue. So that is the plan. One good thing about these Humbrol enamel paints is you can store, if as long as you've got them airtight, you can store them for years. I've had colours that I've opened 15 years later, not a problem. And you certainly see people posting on Facebook opening the old jars from the 60s, and the paint's still good. Right, let's give this a good mix. So I have big jars of enamel thinners. I tend to decant them into these small ones because it's easier just to keep them on the desk as I need them. Trying 3 drops to start with, see how we get on with that. Okay, and I'm using a Humbrol number 2 brush. The orange ones are designed for enamel paints, of a different bristle type.
shaping up to be a two-coat job this. First coat down, definitely needs a second. It should look alright after a second. Okay, so we've done the brass element of the steering wheel. We just need to do the handle and do the rim, if you like. So we're going to paint that in my favourite orange brown, which I think always comes up nice as a light wood colour, which is what I'm looking for. I want it to be a slightly different colour to the wheel spokes. Okay, that's the steering wheel done. So whilst we've got the orange brown out, we can do the engine starter handle. That looks okay. So I'm making some progress with the figures, and what I've got to is an effect that I'm happy with. I have put a matte varnish on, but somehow she still looks like she's in a leather jacket. I need to give her another matte varnish. I might use a different varnish and see if that makes a difference. We're in the process of doing the white for her top, and the gloves, I think I might be saying I'm done with the gloves. So they were painted white, given a grey wash, and then I've gone over and not quite, well, sort of dry brushed and highlighted creases back in white, so that seems to work. Haven't done the arms yet, so we've still got skin tones to go on the arms. The boots have been painted in Vallejo's dark sea grey, and then we'll be going over them with some black to darken them, and then they'll get a gloss varnish. I'm not happy with the hat. Haven't managed to. Sorry, I'm having problems with my light. Haven't managed to get the roses to stand out. We've used different reds, and I can't get them to stand out. So I'm now thinking that I might do the centre of the hat black, just to make it pop out. And we've still got work to do on the sort of the scarf that's tying her hat down to her head. So that's where we are with that. With her head, we put the base colour down for her hair, which I used. Well, I actually used German black brown for that. Now she is going to be blonde, I think. That's sort of the plan at the moment. And as for this guy, that's what I'm doing right now. So like the gloves, we've done white and then a grey wash, and I'm just highlighting that now. So we will crack on with that. So I don't consider myself a particularly good painter, and even less so a figure painter. But what I'm trying to do is I'm going over with a thinned white and just highlighting the tops of the creases where they get caught by the light to try and add some depth. I understand the theory. I'm just not necessarily the best person at applying it into practice. But we have a go. You can get the idea. Well, we're starting to get towards the end of our journey with the Model T. This is now finished as far as I'm concerned.
That's as far as we're going to take it. I'm quite happy with that. We have built her hat up. So I ended up painting the centre black because I couldn't get the roses around the edge to stand out the way I wanted. The scarf, I'll show you probably better with one of these parts. It was that darker pink colour, and what we've basically done is mixed a lighter pink and gone round and painted the tops of the creases, and then put a bit more white into that pink and gone round and highlighted the very tops, and that's worked for me. We've kept it a bit darker on the inside, on the head side of the scarf, if you like. So that's ready to go on. We have done the chap's hat and glued his goggles on. And we have the guy's white suit done. So same process as with the red dress. We've painted a white. I've then given it actually a grey wash, a very translucent grey wash, and then I've gone over and painted all the creases in layers of white until I've got the sort of effect that I want. I still got to varnish the boots. We just put a brown wash on the leather gloves. The gloves on the top of the boots have been painted in Humbrol 62 leather, as it's come out quite well. So we I've just painted eyes. So worth me just talking through the process for the eyes. Initially, we've painted the whole of the faces in this light flesh. Which is 7628, which is my preferred colour for eyeballs. Rather than white, I think white is just stands out too much. They look like comedy figures somehow. So everything got painted in that, and it just dulled down the grey primer ready for further coats of paint. So we did that for the eyes, and then once we'd gone round and painted the face with this darker beige red, which is Vallejo 7804, which has given me that basic skin tone colour that we can see there. Then what we did was we put a spot of varnish on the eyeballs. I have a paintbrush with just a couple of hairs on it. Varnish the eyeballs, and then what I've done is sharpen the end of a cocktail stick and just a dab of colour, and well, actually several dabs on each eyeball until I got the shape that I wanted. So we'll take some photographs at the end so you get a better view. So now we're just doing the lady's hair, and I want it to be a blonde, so we started out with, let me find it, this black-brown colour as a base, and right now she's getting Iraqi sand as a sort of a blonde blocky type colour. And I'm almost sort of dry brushing this on so that we get some of the darkness underneath. And it's not because I want to have an effect where she's sort of dyed her hair, because I'm not even sure that they had hair dye then, particularly. I don't know. It's more a case of it adding a little bit of depth to the colour, if that makes sense. In fact, I need to put a little spot of thinner down in there, I think. By keeping the paint relatively thin, I can build up layers of colour, which works better for me.
Okay, so she's looking a bit blonder than she did before.
So I'm going to use this base skin tone, which is what we put down first, to put a little bit of highlight on the skin, and then we'll use a light flesh tone. So it's things like cheekbones, forehead, bridge of the nose, that type of thing. If you just imagine where light's going to be captured. The other thing I want to do is just go over his lips. Now we put
Violet red down
for the mouth, and if this was a bigger figure like a bust or something like that, we'd have done that around the eyes and nostrils and things, but this figure's not quite big enough. I can use this colour to just dull down that red and make it look less sharp, blend it in, make it look a little bit more natural, and make the inside of his mouth stand out just that little bit more.
There we go.
It's starting to look the part. I think we're nearly there. I need to think about what I'm doing with his hair. Am I lightening that or... Okay, you get the general idea. So I'm going to keep building up layers of paint till I've got this right. Then we're going to come back and have a look at hair. So making sure I've got the eyebrows symmetrical and the same length. I think that's one of the hardest things to do. So I'm just building up very gently. Okay, that's eyebrows and moustache done. I'm going to use this thicker brush now. By thicker I mean it's got more than 2 bristles. I'm just smarten up his hairline. Right, he, I think, is done. So we just need to glue his hat on, and then I think I'm happy to say he's finished. From a painting point of view, what I want to do is not forget the soles of their shoes. So we'll get a little bit of pastel dust and plop that on in a minute. Right, let's have a look at this blonde. So my plan is we put Iraqi sand down for the lady's hair previously, which has sort of given me a foundation on top of that German brown that we put down. So now what I want to do is add a little bit of yellow to the Iraqi sand and sort of lighten it up a little bit. Build some more layers of colour on there. So we'll put a spot of Iraqi sand in first. And then we're going to put a spot of yellow in. So let's mix that and see what that looks like. and just a hint more yellow in. Put some thinner in the palette next to it. So let's just put some on the top of her head and see what that looks like compared to what we've already got down. Yeah, it's not outrageously a different colour. So I want to sort of dry brush this on. I'm building paint up on her hair and try not to sort of paint the whole thing, but just bring out the individual hairs. And just like with the faces and with the clothing, we're just building up layers of paint till I'm happy I've got what I'm looking for. So what I'm trying to do is paint in the direction that the hair is shaped, so that any brush strokes are in the sort of the right direction and it looks more natural. I don't want to paint that way against hair that's going that way. And where some of this brown underneath is still looking a little dark, I can just go over that and blend it in now. So I'm putting a bit of thinner in now, increasingly in the paint at the bottom. That means that the bottom of the palette will be thinner than the paint around the top, so I've got two different thicknesses I can work with now. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is, with this bit of thinner, is make a very, very, very thin wash. And we're going to lay that down as a little filter to blend things in. So just run that round the back. Can be quite liberal here. Dark was only ever just for a bit of depth, so I don't want to actually see any dark. The last thing I want to do now is just give her hair a bit of a darker wash. So I've got some brown that we're adding to this wash here, just to darken that up. I think that's probably enough. Give me the idea of some darker hairs, and again we're just going to use this as a wash so it settles in the recesses and just gives me that last little bit of depth that I'm looking for. Less is more. We'll stop there. Right, just need to let his boots dry, then we can do a little bit of dust on the boots and assembly, and we're done. Okay, so the figures are now finally painted and completed, barring a little bit of final assembly, and we'll do that including assembling the car. Last thing I want to do is just put some dirt underneath the shoes of both the figures. So I'm just using some brown pastel chalk and rubbing it on my finger, as you can see.
And that gives us a nice matted, slightly worn look to the shoes, and
so it looks quite authentic. There we go. So
that's the weathering done.
Okay, time to get this lady on her chariot. So that's her sat in. We just need to put the steering wheel back on, which had taken off just to allow us to get her in a bit more easily.
Okay, let's get this glued on.
Okay, took a little bit of convincing, but it's now in place. So we have the steering wheel glue set in, and female figure is also glued in. So I'm going to glue this chap in now. There we go. That fits lovely. Now we also have the handbrake to put on, which we're waiting for that moment when we had her in place. So we'll do that now. Okay. So next job is the lady's head. Right, she has her head in place. So now we've got to build the hat up. Now, right, I'm going to let the glue dry on all of this now before we put the scarf on. Okay, so we are done. Unfortunately, the scarf's not the best fit, but it is what it is. We will have to put a little bit of filler in at some point and repaint it, but we're going to call that done for this video. So I will take some photographs and then you can see the finished article.